All right, let's dive into a really fascinating story today. It's an ancient parable, but honestly, its lesson feels like it could have been written just for us, right here, right now. It's all about respect, wisdom, and the unbelievable power that's packed into every single word we speak.
I know, that sounds a little over the top, right? But this story, it suggests the answer is a hard yes. It explores how the simple act of speaking, if we do it without thinking, can literally lead to our own ruin. So let's see exactly how.
So, what's so interesting here is that this whole thing doesn't actually kick off thousands of years ago. It starts with a more recent problem, a monk named Kokalika. And the story goes that he met a really terrible end, all because of the way he used his words. His downfall was such a big deal that it made the Buddha step in and share a much deeper story to explain what had just happened. So, to help the other monks understand why Kokalika's fate was basically sealed by his own mouth, the Buddha reached way back into a past life. He pulled out this older, simpler parable to shine a light on a huge lesson about human nature. This is the story within the story.
Okay, so let's jump back in time. We're heading to a hermitage deep in the Himalayas. Picture a community of 500 hermits all living and learning under a wise teacher, who happens to be the Bodhisattva. And it's right here that two seemingly separate but connected tragedies are about to happen.
So just imagine this scene. You've got one hermit. He's just quietly trying to chop some firewood. But then another hermit, described as being really brash and brazen-mouthed, comes and stands right over him, just endlessly criticizing. No, strike it here, over here. Again and again, just nagging the woodcutter until, in a flash of anger, the guy just snaps. He turns and says, "Hey, you're not my teacher in woodcutting," and with a single blow of the axe, he strikes the brash hermit down. A life just ended, all because of words that pushed someone way too far.
All right, so that's tragedy number one. Now for the second one. Near that very same hermitage, there lived a partridge. And every morning, every evening, just like clockwork, it would fly to the exact same termite mound and let out this incredibly loud song. I mean, its call was powerful, you couldn't miss it. Well, a local hunter heard this loud, predictable call day after day. It was basically a giant blinking arrow pointing right at the bird. The sound led him straight to it. And just like that, with almost no effort, the hunter found the partridge and killed it. The bird's own voice had led to its own undoing.
So, here's where it all connects. You've got a man and you've got a bird. Totally different situations, right? But look at why they both met their end. The hermit was killed because his speech was just plain irritating and badly timed. The partridge was killed because its call was simply too loud. In the end, they were both destroyed by their own sound.
Now the wise teacher, the Bodhisattva, he sees all of this go down. He sees the dead hermit, and then he notices the partridge has gone silent. And he uses these two tragedies as this incredibly powerful, real-time teaching moment for all 500 of his students.
And this is the heart of the entire lesson. The Bodhisattva gathers all the hermits together and shares this verse. It's such a direct and powerful warning. Basically, speech that's uncontrolled, that lacks wisdom in its volume, in its tone, and in its timing, is a weapon that can literally destroy you.
So he breaks it down into three key ideas. First up is ajigita, and this basically means too loud. But we're not just talking about volume. It's about speech that's overpowering, speech that just dominates the room and screams for attention, just like that partridge's song.
Next, we have atibalata, which translates to too harsh or even too forceful. Think back to that brash hermit. His words, repeated over and over, were like tiny verbal punches. This is speech that's aggressive, insistent, and just wears you down until you break. And the last one, and this might be the most important of all, is akdevilam pabasita. This means spoken out of time. It's all about knowing when to speak and, just as importantly, when to stay quiet. It's the wisdom of good timing. The hermit's constant criticism, it was completely and utterly out of time. So after laying out this whole parable and its lesson, the Buddha brings this story right back to the present moment, connecting the characters from that ancient story to the very people sitting right there with him.
And this is the real kicker. He reveals who everyone was in that past life. The brash hermit who was killed, that was the monk Kokalika, the one who had just met his own ruin. The assembly of hermits who learned this big lesson, that was the Buddha's current group of disciples. And the wise teacher, the Bodhisattva, well, that was the Buddha himself, you see. It's not just some old story. It's a pattern, a cycle repeating itself.
So, what does this all mean for us? This isn't just some dusty old fable.
It's basically a practical guide for how we can move through the world with our words. It's a timeless lesson on the art of communication, and it's something every single one of us can learn from.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? In our work meetings, in conversations with our family, even in what we post online. Are we being the partridge? Are we being the brash hermit? Or can we choose a wiser path?
And the lesson here, it's actually incredibly simple, and it's something we can all start doing today. It teaches us to just speak with a bit of moderation, not too loud, to choose kindness instead of harshness, to develop the wisdom to know the right time and place to say something, and to make sure our words actually have a purpose instead of just being noise.
So in the end, it really comes down to a choice, doesn't it? Our voice can be a weapon that brings harm, or it can be a fatal beacon like the partridge's song. Or it can be a tool for connection, for teaching, and for creating peace and understanding. The power is exactly the same. How we choose to use it is what makes all the difference.
Thanks for joining me for this story. May you all be happy.